Vikings-Lions, NFC North on the line, #1 overall seed on the line, a bye week. Peter, the gift that would keep on giving if you won this game this weekend.
No doubt. And the stakes are real for the loser. The more I think about this, if you lose this game on Sunday, take a walk through this mental exercise. We win, we are off next week, and we are home the rest of the playoffs. We lose, quite literally, Jamie, the loser of this game has to go back home, pack a bag, and go on the road to either Atlanta, Tampa Bay, or L.A., and then start a 6 to 5 week journey where they're not going to be back home in a home game unless something crazy happens with upsets underneath them. It is a true win and in for the bye, but also the loser has to go and pack their bags and be a group of weary travelers over the next month of football. I don't think there's ever been a Week 18 game with higher stakes, and I also don't think there's been a Week 18 game that has matched wits with two coordinators at the level that we're getting with Ben Johnson and Brian Flores. I would argue the Detroit Lions offense has been the best in the league, and the Vikings defense has been the best in the league. And there is history. Remember, Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell, those guys worked in Miami. Their coaching staff was let go, but Ben Johnson had an opportunity to maybe come back with whoever the new coach was going to be. He waited around for that opportunity. Brian Flores was hired. Ben Johnson didn't even get an interview. He was asked about it yesterday. Take a listen.
I knew of him because he's a Boston College guy, and that's where I did my GA spot. And, of course, he's in New England, and we faced across the sideline there for a number of years. But I didn't get to know him. I met him at the Combine a couple years ago. Seems like a great guy, has a great reputation. When he took that job in Miami, he had a staff already in his head with who he wanted. So I was let go, and that was that.
Bit of a smirk at the end there. He's like, and that was that. Well, now they square off with all the marbles at stake. It's huge. Yesterday we did the Pro Bowl. Just take a look at these two units. First, the Detroit offense. Okay, we got the Pro Bowl team. You look at this, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you could have made the argument that there were other players that belonged on this thing with their offensive line, the way they're playing, and, of course, the way that David Montgomery was playing most of the season, and Jamison Williams, the big plays he's had. And Sam Laporta is very deserving of a tight end spot if it wasn't for the crazy season other guys in the NFC are having. And then you look at the Minnesota defense. What did that unit put together as far as Pro Bowlers go? 1, 2, 3, all first-time selections. You're talking about 13 Pro Bowlers who will be on the field in total in this game. You're talking about 5 on the Lions offense, 3 on the Vikings defense. This is a chess match. It's also a boxing match. You can find whatever analogy you want. But, Jamie, the stakes are real. And I think when you're talking about Ben Johnson and Brian Flores, there is history there, as civil as it might be. Remember, Flores got the job in Miami and was like, I've got my staff. I don't need to meet that guy. I'm good.
Strex, I'm glad you brought up Brian Flores versus Ben Johnson. That's the matchup that I'm also looking at, but more specifically how Ben Johnson uses Jahmyr Gibbs. Everybody knows that Brian Flores likes to run cover 0. I don't know if anybody knows this, but do you know who has the running back as responsibility in cover 0? The rush. The rush has the running back. So I don't know if you know anything about the Vikings defense, but I'm taking Jahmyr Gibbs against any rusher as long as they don't run a bubble screen to Van Ginkel's side, because Van Ginkel has a knack of intercepting bubble screens to running backs. But as long as Ben Johnson doesn't shy away from using Jahmyr Gibbs in the passing game against cover 0, I think it's going to work well for them. As far as how the Vikings can attack this Detroit Lions defense, I'm really looking at T.J. Hawkinson coming alive. If you looked at George Kittle, last week he had 8 catches for 112 yards against this defense.
All out.
I know Aaron Glenn. He was with me in New Orleans. Well, I was with him in New Orleans. Aaron Glenn isn't going to let Justin Jefferson beat him. He's going to double team him. I know that they have Addison on the other side, so I expect a lot of cover to keep a top over that defense. But T.J. Hawkinson has a real big opportunity to have a big game this week against this defense, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they utilize both T.J. Hawkinson and Jahmyr Gibbs in those matchups. So I think it's going to be a Week 18 game that we're all looking forward to, and especially those two matchups have my eye on.
Manti, we are looking forward to this, but I think we all have to kind of go back to the genesis of this because it has a pretty cool, history when you think about these two teams. I go back to December 5th, 2021. This is Campbell's first year. This is Jared Goff's first year. Remember, the Lions, they were winless. They had 10 losses and 1 tie. And then they were in this last game where the Vikings, they were chasing a playoff game in this situation. And all of a sudden, the Detroit Lions, they're down by 8. They lose that 8-point lead. They come back, and then Jared Goff had this amazing touchdown throw to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Take a look at this real quick.
4 seconds to go. They can win it with a touchdown. Goff's got it. Back, looks, throws, ends up.
Yes!
Caught! Touchdown, Detroit Lions! They did it! Amon-Ra St. Brown on the receiving end. They've done it! Jared Goff to Amon-Ra St. Brown. His first career touchdown. This game is over. It's over.
That right there was impressive. I mean, you felt that. You go back into that and, you think, wow, that actually was the turning point for the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions, they have since then have won 68% of their game since that point. It was also a turning point, too, then for the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings, in that situation, they fired their coach. They fired their general manager. They bring in, of course, Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell, since that point, has won 68% of his game. This is all going to come down, though, fast forwarding it to this Sunday. It's going to come down to defense. Manti, you touched on this. But when you look at this, Ben Johnson, he's had Ben Flores' number. He scored 30 points or more already against their defense in the last 3 times that they've played. So he understands how to pick apart this defense. And I think on the other side, I think we've all seen it. We've all heard it. We've read the headlines. We know how injured this Lions defense has been. But their biggest liability has been their defense. When you think about how the 49ers just ate them up defensively, it was horrible to watch when you look at it. But you start thinking, okay, the offense has to kind of keep up to try to cover up some of the liability issues. Now, I know, obviously, there's a couple of picks here that were game-changing. But when you just look at how the 49ers, who I think, it's a team, they've got some solid pieces, but this was against a lot of their secondary guys and their backup guys, and they were able to do this to this defense. So whoever's going to be the winner of this big matchup, it is going to come down to the defense.
And the injuries have just piled up for them. That's been really terrible for the Lions. That is a really cool thing to just look back at Amon-Ra St. Brown's first touchdown. We've done a lot of focus on Amon-Ra St. Brown this season. We've done a lot of focus on Jamar Chase. And I don't know if it's because the Bengals defense has been rough and Joe Burrow's been great and that connection is awesome. Peter, why do I feel like we just don't watch enough Justin Jefferson highlights from this season? Because once again, he's going back to the Pro Bowl. Once again, he always seems to be the guy that corners are asked about. Then there's always some spicy quote about like, oh, it's not that hard. Oh, I can take that guy. But here we are, and Justin Jefferson could be the one to once again take advantage of a Lions secondary.
It's a great question. You ask around, it's like Jamar Chase is the best receiver in football this year. You look at the numbers, Justin Jefferson's right there, and his team is sitting at 14-2, Jamie, and he's done everything you could possibly ask after getting paid. Look, I don't want to go unbiased here or take the journalism hat off. Jamie, you are a Vikings fan growing up. You are a Vikings fan because you're from Minnesota. I think it's okay for us to be fans of the sport. I ask you, is there a feeling of that we're being disrespected and we're not treated the same way Detroit's treated or Kansas City's treated or Buffalo or Baltimore? I still feel like there's a chip on the shoulders from Vikings fans, and tell me if I'm wrong. Does it feel like that's kind of the question you're asking here? Why isn't Jefferson given the love?
Well, yes, kind of, a little bit. I mean, I do feel like when you watch highlights from Vikings games, it's constantly oohing and awing, and rightfully so, over Sam Darnold's journey. And while that has been impressive and remarkable, and the connection and the thing that KOC has done with Sam Darnold has been great, but Justin Jefferson has now gone through several different quarterbacks. He had a long-awaited contract extension that was gifted to him this summer. Yet he has still, Peter, to your point, performed week in and week out. Every week he is that guy. The defense is awesome, but Justin Jefferson is present. And never was he bothered by drafting of a Jordan Addison. He brings this young guy along. He accommodates T.J. Hawkinson within this offense. He has just been that guy. But I don't know if it's because it's fascinating to watch the Bengals operate and that Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow draft class out of LSU is just it's low-hanging fruit to go with the Bengals. But I just don't know if we've given Justin Jefferson enough love this year. But Peter, to your point, I just am a little bit biased because after that game on Sunday, my husband went on and bought 4 tickets to the Lions game, and he's just going to Detroit this weekend because he's like stressed. He's just going Sunday night. Goodbye. He wants to be on site to watch it all happen. This is the plight of a Vikings fans that is this really going to be a January where it's different? But I know I don't have to talk about chip on the shoulder when it comes to fans if I'm talking to Detroit, too. So, Peter, it's kind of like take your pick.